Hello everyone, today we're going to show you how to warp your boss with these 5 settings before you're using the pivot table, for example. So before you may present your analyze workouts in such a pivot format, you feel like you already summarize something in a way that can give some insight for a boss. Yes, you did something and it's very high level. You can see you summarize the data by the quantity that order has been placed, and also the number of cells, which is the sum about that, and also display the same number by different. Here we can see is by kind of category, and then this is the cells by region. You can say nation, geographic data. So all of them line together. Yeah, you did your job very good, but this is before. But what if you can present the data in a totally renovation way, give some interaction and opportunity for a boss to play around with the data like this way? Then I believe you are what your boss like say in a very significant way. For example, your boss can take a particular country, for example Australia, to check what's the quarter sales in terms of quantity and also sales in dollar value. And he can also quickly know that the several cities get involved into this kind of country sales. For example, you have Chatswood, Glen Waverley, Melbourne, sort of things, and so on. And he also knows that he has all the sales across all the channel product lines. And if we just want to focus on specific product line, for example, the motorcycle, he can just tick on this, and then you can quickly scan that and find out the customer is only 3 customers for this kind of selection if you filter on that. And eventually, if he wants to look at data into different period, he can just pick a month and drag it to October. Oh, sorry, this period has no sales. And yes, if we pick the 2004 from Jan to March, so that's your sales. So it gave him a freedom, but still within the boundary he can play around. And once he clear all the filters, we can check the number. It's lined up with the first one, but I believe this is more convincible and also give him a good chance to look at the data by different ways. So today we'll learn how to make the thing from here to here. So very simple, we just create a test tab. So going to the before, let's just say we're going to use one of this one. Let's do from scratch. So this row table, if we look at the column, is from column A to, I believe, to Y. And that's the column title. And first, we go into the insert. Make sure you select any cells that in this data range already. Insert, pivot table, existing worksheet. We're going to the test one. We just dump it over here. Okay, so let's mimic this one. So it's showing the cells by date, and also in terms of cells, it's showing the quantity ordered and also the total cells. So in the value, I know that there's a quantity ordered and cells, and this data was displayed in a way to present that in a order date format. So that's how it goes. If we expand this to, so we have mimic exactly what this pivot table is doing. Now we're going to fix 2 things. So the first thing we're going to do to set up your parameter of your pivot table is number formatting. First, we check if that number is integer. It's supposed to be integer. So quantity can only be integer. There's no half quantity you can order, and there's no 3/4 quantity you can order. So this is fine. But this one is a little bit weird because sales normally we know is dollar related. We like to add a dollar sign before that, and also want to remove the decimals because since the number is so huge, the decimal we can just remove that, so have less distraction. So we right click, go into the value view setting, go to number formatting. You can see right now by default this column C is actually the general. We're going to use currency or counting, both it's fine, but I like to use currency in case there's something negative, and remove the 2 decimals. So that's your sample display. So you have a dollar sign, you have 1,000 separators. Click OK. Now it's ready. So pretty good. Since we we need to do these two pivot tables. The first one we have mimicked that. The second one we're going to do is a sales summary by product lines, right? So we're going here. We're going to copy this whole pivot table and paste. Once we paste, we know that this area won't change, and we need quantity and sales, but it's just by different rows, which is the product line. Drag over here. Okay, now we have exactly mimic whatever over here. So second is we can add some slices to help us to filter out the data based on this tick box. So we go in here, we insert, for example, we insert 5 columns. Select one of the pivot table, go into insert, you have this slicer option. So let's just look at what slicer we're going to introduce. First, we're going to introduce the slicer, which is product line. And we want the customer name. We want the city and country. Let's go through one time again, see if we are missing anything. Yet, that's all good. So we have 4 slices. We check over here, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the first one is the country. What we can put is, oh, sorry, this one we're going to remove that. Let's just redo that again. Insert, because we need country, not the territory. Country here. Okay. So country looks like it's over this place, and city is here. So city is here. Product line is here. Customer name is here. But it looks like this is just only one column. Look like our country has 1, 2, 3, 4, 4 column. Easy. Just go in here, slicer, increase this column by 3. You have this 4 ready. Drag it up, and this is the 4 column. And since I don't want this scroll bar, so I want more space in between. So if I drag this up, drag down again, it's a display. Second is the city. We display city over here. We do the same thing, drag it way to up here and up again. We increase the column count to make it nicer. This one, since it is too long, so it's fine, we just leave it. And the product line, where's the product? Product line is over here. So we drag the product line over here. I think if we align here, 2 will be sufficient, but we can make this wider by doing this way. Now it's fine. And the last one, the position is the customer name. Going here, drag it down. It looks like customer name is a little bit longer, so we'll make it longer and then we'll line up. Okay, that's good, all good. And I think this table will be over this place. Then we just make this bigger and drag this over here. Now we're done most. And if you look at that, we're missing one thing over the top, which is the order date. It looks like a slicer, but not. So we can learn how to do that in a second. First, we make the space is enough for that kind of object. So what we need to do is select one of the pivot table, go into the insert tab again. Based on filter, we have slicer, we have done 4, but now we need to introduce a timeline instead of slicer. It will all sense whatever the date in each of the column of those pivot table that you have done. And it senses that all the date is a date column. So that's the chance you can insert this timeline. And if we drag this over to here, to the very left, and we move over here, I drag this a little bit up. Now you can see we actually have done the basic things. So we have done 3 things. First, we fixed the number formatting. Second, we introduced 4 slices. Third, we introduce a timeline. So this timeline, if we go into this period, you can see it's actually dynamically filtering the data. But there's one problem only. If I filter this data, looks like this pivot table is filtered, but this one is not. Let's just clear this one and check this one again. Okay, so we can check that this 3 slicer is actually linked to this one. Since I choose a different country, this is dynamically changed. And this is dynamic changed. This has been dynamic changed. So which means they are linked together. So there's one thing that this timeline is only linked to the first pivot table, not this one. So how to fix that? Pretty easy. Go into the timeline. Make sure you select the timeline first. So if you select nothing, this timeline contextual toolbar won't come up. Make sure you select the timeline. The timeline is coming up, report connections. We have several pivot table has been inserted into this one, but I know that on this task spreadsheet, I have 2 pivot table. One is 5, the other one is 6. I need to tick this. In that way, if I select different time, you can see this 2 has been filtered out in the same time. That's what we need. And we can also check this one to see how it works. It's actually linked to this one, so we need to make sure this is happening. This one, we do the same thing, slicer, report connection, make sure it's linked to this 2 pivot table. This one, slicer, pivot table, going down. This one, we do the same thing, slicer, pivot table. But you may ask, how do I know the pivot table name? Pretty easy. You select the pivot table, go into pivot table, analyze. That's the pivot table. Let's just say test 1. And we change this, do the same thing to test 2. To be aware of that, no space is allowed in this kind of area. Enter. Then if I check any of these report connection, you can see the name has been changed. So you can change whatever name you wish and just make sure there's no space and also it's understandable, rememberable. So I could cancel. Now I need to test if the user get this test spreadsheet, they can interact to the data. For example, if I want to choose one of these, it's coming up. So I know this customer name has bought some product from 3 product lines, and he or she or this company is in France and in this city. And the sales for 2004, quarter 1 and quarter 4 is this much. And it's spread across this much quantity orders. So that's the thing that I show you. And there's the last one. You can see this very beautiful of this kind of different timelines and slices. This one is pretty, say, neutral. So how should we achieve that? Pretty easy. We're going to the timeline first. There's always a timeline style. If you choose a slicer, they have a slicer style. So that's what we are going to do. So the timeline, if you click more, they have light and dark. Normally I like dark, so I choose this dark. And slicer, I choose dark as well. Let's just make this as this color. And city, we make it as green, I think. Yes, city is green. Product line is another dark blue. We choose that product line, dark blue. And this customer name is gray, I believe. One last thing, we align them together. Okay. So we have gone through all the 5 settings that you need to make your pivot table or dashboard professional. First, fix number formatting for integer and also dollar value. Second, introduce slicer. Third, introduce timeline. Fourth, make report connections so they are all linked together. They can filter out everything at the same time. And the last one is change your slicer style and timeline style. And there's one last thing is going to the view and just do not need a glide line, and also going to here view, you're going to phrase your pen. So in that way, no matter how they filter this report won't change, which means this gonna be always display on, so they can have a very good understanding about the data. Because sometimes if you forget to phrase that, people say, where's my dashboard or where's my report? So it's actually here. So you need to lock that. So just go into the view. This will help you to do that. And once this done, I can, for sure, this gonna be your next milestone to present to your boss about, hey, that's the insight I found, and you can play around with it. So that's the keyword you're gonna propose to your boss. You can play around with it. And thanks for watching. See you guys in the next one.